Hello, Yakri here with another Warframe video. So I want to talk about Archwing today. Specifically, I want to talk about the recent patch notes in which DE corrected a mistake they made, like a written mistake. In this case, they corrected it by saying, no, we didn't intend to do something actually good for Archwing. That was purely a typo. That was a mistake. We did not mean to do anything of the kind, and nothing of the kind was in fact done. In this case, what I'm referring to are the new Archwing impact, puncture, and slash mods that were added to the game for melee and ranged weapons, right? Now, I don't know if you're familiar, but in normal Warframe, we have those 90% impact, puncture, and slash mods, and they're not useful. You would not normally use those for any weapon. If this is like news to you, well, congratulations, you're being educated. You would not normally use any of those for any weapon under any circumstances, and the reason for this is because they work off of the matching base stat, right? So if you have a slash weapon and 70% of its damage is slash, that 70% of its base damage will be increased by 90%. Now, if you use instead an elemental mod, right? Like if you use if you instead use like heated charge or something to increase fire or heat damage by 90%, you will increase all of the weapon's damage, all 100% of the base damage of the weapon, the combined impact, puncture, and slash damage of the weapon by 90%. That's a lot better. That's about 30% more damage bonus than you would have gotten out of the impact or slash or puncture mod, right? So obviously there's no reason, especially with the limited mod capacity of weapons, if the mod capacity was like unlimited or something nuts like that, then this might not be as much of a clear-cut issue, but it is. There's limited mod capacity, and so there's no reason to ever use one of those mods. Instead, we have the actually useful, although only on certain weapons, impact, puncture, and slash mods like Buzzkill and Piercing Caliber that are rare and worth a lot of money. And the other impact, puncture, and slash mods essentially have no reason for being in the game whatsoever, except for a few rare cases of weapons that have only one damage type, or weapons that are like over 90% slashing damage, because slash damage is actually very, very good. It's better than most other damage types in the game for endgame content, because its proc is so good and its base damage type has really good bonuses. But even then, that's really unlikely that that's going to happen. It's a very, very niche case scenario. Now, in Archwing, though, we don't actually have the same situation. And before you get ahead of yourself, no. That doesn't mean that the mods that DE added to the game just recently, like intentionally put time into adding to Archwing, are useful. No, they are not. There's no reason to use them ever. And that's because in Archwing, if you're not familiar, the elemental mods add 120% bonus damage. That means that they are, 30% less damage than the impact, puncture, slash mods. Oh, that's in the case of the ranged weapons. I believe for melee it's even worse. They're like 60%, so they're like they're 60% less damage as well. And keep in mind, that's still only going off of the main stat for the weapon. So, or you could theoretically mod one for not the main stat and just be really, really terrible, right? Where do I need to go? Have you ever had a moment like this in Archwing? It's been happening to me. This is the second time I'm making this video, and the last time I got lost too. I'll figure it out. Anyway, so the point is that even in normal Warframe, where they're both 90% mods, there's no reason to use them. In this case, the elemental mods are 30% higher than they are in the rest of the game, and there's really, really no reason ever, under any circumstances, to use these new rare mods that they added to Archwing drop tables. What they added to the game are pure trash mods that maybe will, trick some new players into using them before they realize how garbage they are and replace them and sell them for credits. And it just boggles my mind. There are so many issues that need to be fixed with Archwing that the idea of spending even 5 minutes adding in this counterproductive trash to the game that essentially serves no purpose save to aggravate players. I don't understand how that can really happen except as some sort of dickish bureaucratic mistake. Except keep in mind, their statement actually says that the status chance, the thing is that they originally announced these mods as having a very high bonus to status chance, which if they still had that, they could actually serve a purpose by giving you a better proc chance with some weapons. It could have been very useful, right, to have that kind of thing. But that was old information. They've since changed how the mods work. They thought that making the mods actually useful for any reason was too good for us, and they removed that from the game, and went with the current function, which is none whatsoever. That's ridiculous. They had an early draft of these mods that was useful, would have been balanced, and a nice new addition to Archwing, something a little different we could do with our weapons maybe if we want nice high status chance, and they intentionally removed that part of the mods from the game, but then added in these mods that are totally without any purpose except to clutter up drop tables and prevent us from getting mods that are actually useful. And it kind of just shows the absolute lack of support that there has been for Archwing as a game mode since it was introduced. And that's particularly aggravating since players who don't like the mode are forced to play through Archwing if you want to get all of the content that's in Warframe, without spending plat. If you want to get Chroma, you need to play on Kalius to complete that junction and all this other stuff. And there's the one raid, which if you want to get those, if you want to, without paying other people, again, if you want to actually experience the Jordis precept, Jordis something, you have to do Archwing, and yet they leave Archwing unsupported and broken and don't fix basic issues with the game mode. And that's been the case for a long time. It does seem like finally we are getting some small improvements with augments for Archwings and the new flight system, which after some issue fixing, although it clearly was not tested well enough, it does seem to be turning out a little better. Honestly, I can't tell that much difference from before, except that you don't slow down when you start shooting while boosting, which is, it's nice, but it's not exactly like a stunning rework that changed the game mode. It's a little different, and probably slightly better now that they've changed it even more. But there are a huge number of issues with Archwing, and they really don't need to be actively adding new issues to the mode, right? These mods exist in normal Warframe, and it's extremely obvious and clear to anyone who can do some basic addition, and you actually need to do some multiplication, I guess, but anyone who can do some basic math, that they serve no purpose whatsoever. And even in the couple crazy edge cases where you say, well, I could use it this way if I really wanted to, even though I shouldn't. Yeah, okay, but in Archwing that's not the case anymore, because the elemental mods are so much better than the impact puncture and slash mods that it's not even a question, right? If the impact puncture slash mods were all 120%, kind of, but they'd still be bad. No one would really use them. If they had come out as they had originally planned for them to come out, if they come out with the stats that they actually were announced with, then they would actually have a use. And I can't imagine it would be all that hard for them to simply add in the status chance. I know there's always that one person who's like, oh, that's probably too hard to program. No, it wouldn't be. They're going to have some sort of basic mod class where they can just input the value. The designers can input values they want. It's not a new system that they have to introduce. It's just a little probably not copy pasting so much as create new object, add in values. Anyway, point being that I don't think there's any possibility to question the fact that this was a bad decision and it doesn't help Archwing or the game at all. It serves no purpose. And it aggravates me to see that kind of change being made when that particular game mode needs so much help. Now I'm going to go on to another video in which I'm going to do an actual overall critique of Archwing. You know, I saw this post on Reddit that also annoyed me a bit, where someone's like, the new Archwing movement system, it's great, now I can really have fun with Archwing. Archwing is basically a finished game mode now. They solved all the issues with it. It's great. Can't really agree with that at all. I think a lot of the changes needed to make Archwing quite playable are not super difficult. Some of them are probably pretty tricky, like the 3D map that they're currently working on, and other stuff like that. But mostly not that hard. Not huge changes. Mostly number tweaking and stuff. But those changes have not been made, and there are huge problems with Archwing, and it's much worse coming in as a new player. I'm starting to have a little bit of fun with it now because I have like really powerful equipment like the Grappler, and because of the changes to mastery rating. But if you are a like mastery rank 5 player who's getting an Archwing for the first time, you are going to have a bad time for a long time until you get the mods you need and you can farm up some hard to farm resources to get the equipment you need. And as an experienced player, it's not that bad anymore, but the new player experience for it is god awful, and Warframe does not have a good new player experience, right? This is compared to normal Warframe. The Archwing experience is god awful. That's just not a good place for it to be in. And you can't get past that early awful section nearly as quickly as you can with normal Warframe for issues I'll discuss in part 2.